Great. Well, I do appreciate everybody taking their time today to meet with us on the last day of Hanukkah. Sam and I are in Israel, so we have lit our candles for the evening and are wrapping up our holiday. I don't know, Sam, about you, but I think my two favorite holidays in Israel are Hanukkah and Passover, because you can just feel it. Regardless of the length of time, you can really just step outside and you know what holiday it is. I originally am from California. I made Aliyah. I live in Jerusalem now, but that wasn't the case. I think walking out in the San Diego streets on Hanukkah, couldn't always tell that it was Hanukkah, but in Jerusalem, in Israel, it's a little something different. So happy Hanukkah, everybody, and I'm glad that you're here with us. Like I said, my name is Vanessa Vetter. You probably get lots of emails from me. So now it's really nice to meet you virtually, at least in this case. And work as the recruitment coordinator for all of MITF. We have our 12 amazing cities and a few city recruiters, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'm here with all the cities sitting in front of me. And so I'm very excited to be able to have this call together. And I hope that we get to each have phone calls again in the future, which we'll get to in just a moment. But I'll let Sam quickly introduce himself and we'll get started.
Hey everyone, can y'all hear me?
Good to go.
Cool. So my name is Sam. I am a Masa Alum. I finished the program in July. Let's see what else. I am 26 from Houston, Texas. Spent my whole life over there. And then, came here, wanted something different. Yeah, we'll do a little bit of the story right now. Wanted to change, so decided to try MITF. Did it, fell in love. Now I live in Israel. I made Aliyah this week, and I actually work for Masa as well. So playing double duty tonight, I guess.
And Sam, you said you made Aliyah, you're making Aliyah?
I made.
You made Aliyah. Mazal tov, congratulations.
I got my Teudah this week.
Officially a citizen, congratulations. It's not the point of MITF to make Aliyah or move here. You get 10 months to really figure out if you want to come back to visit, you want to come to stay, but that just happens to be Sam's story. And there's a wide spectrum of what people do after the program, but we'll get to that in just a minute. As I was saying, I'm originally from San Diego, went to university in San Francisco, SF State, go Gators. And made my way to Israel through gap years, and I staffed a gap year, and I did my study abroad and did Masa programs, and eventually decided to kind of take root, and I made Aliyah about 2 years ago, about 4 months before the pandemic started. So that was an interesting transition, but still here, still enjoying it. We can talk about that another time. And as I said, I'm the recruitment coordinator for MITF. So Sam kind of mentioned it a little bit a moment ago about why you went on MITF. And to kind of get into the mindset, I just wanted you to take a moment and ask yourselves, what are these top 3, 4, 5 questions that week in, week out, you have to ask yourself about your rent, about what your job is doing, what you're doing in the next step of your job, how you're building a social life, all of those pieces. And I completely understand. I moved to a new country. How to make friends was top priority for me. And these are all things that we have to kind of make way on our own. We meet people here and there. We have things to help us out along the way, but really it's a solo ordeal. And on MITF, not only do you have the support and you have these built-in pieces for you, but you also get to ask yourself different questions, right? It's not just the monotony of, all right, what am I going to take to lunch for work? And how am I going to spend my weekends? What am I going to celebrate Shabbat? Do I care about Shabbat? All of those things. You get to take a moment and ask yourself if this is important to you and what is important to you. You have 10 months to make these choices, 10 months to ask yourself these questions, 10 months to find answers to them. So who gets to find the answers to these questions? Who can apply to be a fellow? These are the eligibility requirements. It's 4 for 4. You'll need to answer 4 yeses in order to be eligible. And if for any reason something doesn't apply to you, please send me an email and I'm happy to connect you to a shorter-term or long-term program that would be more appropriate for you. So don't let this stop you if it's not the case. Just send me an email and I'm happy to be in touch. If this is the case, you can answer 4 for 4. Then yalla, we go on to the next step of the application. But before we get there, take another step back and just kind of look at what this program does. It's 10 months. That's a lot of time, a lot of teaching, a lot of what else. And really the three main pieces that MITF accomplishes are impact, social networking, and career professional development. All of these pieces are done so that you have the structure you have the structure built for you. You have Masa there to support you in your ability to make an impact, in your chance to social network, and really how to develop your career and also just general professional development. All of these pieces are touched upon in 10 months, both inside and outside of the classroom, which we'll get to it in a moment. I think something that I kind of joke about is that like the concept of Masa Israel Teaching Fellows, that word teaching, it gets people caught up. Obviously, not everybody's going to be a teacher. Not everybody's looking to get into education. But at the end of it, education is a part of any career that you're deciding to go into. To be able to articulate your thoughts to someone who doesn't necessarily understand you, someone who doesn't speak English in this case, or to be able to teach someone what it is that you need for them to accomplish. You need to get them to get to the next step. All these pieces are going to be in any job that you do. And so learning how to do it in an English classroom in Israel is a pretty nice way of doing it. And so in this program, you're going to be working with students, as I mentioned. Oh, picture's not loading, that's okay. And so you're going to be working in classrooms. And what does that mean? What does your week look like? How do you balance a whole schedule? So first we'll kind of zoom in and we'll look at the day-to-day of what it looks like to be in a classroom, and then we'll zoom out and you'll get a chance to kind of see a weekly schedule. And then we'll be able to hear from Sam for a moment about what that schedule is like and what it really is to be in the day-to-day life of an MITF fellow. So the first piece is, who are my students? So you're going to be working generally with students between the ages of 7 to 13 years old in what we call periphery cities. And periphery cities are what all of our cities are categorized as, and that means the socioeconomic periphery of the country. And in Israel, there's a huge gap between English teachers with a native English language and English teachers in Israel. I've definitely taken a few language classes in which my teacher was not a native speaker, and it definitely impacted my studies. And so to bring in native English speakers is a huge priority of the Ministry of Education here in Israel. And so this program was created, we're on our 11th cohort, so almost 11 years ago, just about. The program was created in partnership with the Ministry of Education in order to fill this gap, in order to meet the needs of these communities that weren't getting the proper exposure to English, weren't getting the proper exposure to an English education. And so this program was created. So the work that you're doing is extremely necessary, and we'll get to even what that means in a little bit more of how we stayed open through the pandemic. We kept bringing in fellows, and we're still doing what we're doing, and now you have the opportunity to apply. And so in these periphery cities, they aren't getting the same level of tourism, so their exposure to English is a lot lower, and financially they're on the periphery, which means that teachers aren't necessarily coming to these communities to work. And so your role is really filling this crucial space of English exposure, the option to be able to say, oh, I'm comfortable in English, right? Any job that someone is going to get eventually out of school, or any kind of academic growth or other social growth networks, anything that somebody wants to be a part of, you'll need some level of English, whether it's very basic online English or you need to be able to converse in person. The point is that you're bringing these opportunities into these communities and to these kids. And just to also show them there are Jewish people outside of Israel. You're teaching them that there are jobs outside of what they're used to seeing. It's all about this exposure. And so we'll kind of get more into that in a little bit about what it means to bring exposure. Do you need to be a teacher, have teaching experience? Get to that in a minute. But the next piece of your classroom experience is that on the fellows track, the fellows will teach smaller groups of students. So if something, oh wow, 20, 25, 30 students, that would be too much. This is what this program is for that more intimate educational setting, which just leads to more meaningful connections and a bigger opportunity for you to really get to know your students and for them to get to know you. And so even if you've been teaching for many, many years and you're able to apply to the fellows track, being able to engage with your students at this level with smaller groups, as Sam will speak about in a moment, really does make the difference, not just for their educational experience, but also for your experience to get to understand who they are and what their life is like. You're going to be working about 25 hours a week. in the classrooms. You'll have 1 day off a week to kind of just do what you want to do, whether that's a volunteering project, traveling, resting, going to a thrift store, whatever it is. You have a day a week, 100% for you. Before we kind of jump into this example schedule of a fellow, I would love for Sam to speak for a moment, and Sam to kind of talk about what was it like teaching in an Israeli classroom, and what does that time with your students mean to you?
Wow. Okay. So I don't know about any of you guys, but I was not a teacher before this program. So the closest thing I ever had done was I was like a counselor at my sleepaway camps in high school. So it had been a while. Working with Israeli students, especially, I mostly worked with fourth and fifth graders and fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. I mean, they're, how do I even describe them? They are very high energy, but if you show them like the love and support that they need, and give them the attention, especially with English, then they'll grow to love you. And my students has warmed my heart. Of course, there is an adjustment period, like figuring out how to navigate, and especially trying to communicate with these students who often, again, don't really know that much English. So learning to communicate and learning how to command their attention is the hard part, but I think the easy part is really it's okay. Let me describe it this way. When you they see you're from England or America or South Africa or wherever you're from, they're like, wow, you came all the way from America, to live here, to live in Israel, to live in our town, and to come teach us English. That's crazy. That's amazing. They think you're a celebrity. And, when you're in school, you feel like one. And, it was an amazing, amazing experience. There's not enough good things for me to say about it.
I'm glad that you touched on kind of both of those points and said, it's easy, but it's also really hard. It's that adjustment period. I want to give a quick shout out to Bagel, who just joined our call. He's the program coordinator of MITF, and is a great friendly face that when you all come on the program, you'll be able to get to know a little bit more. So thank you, Bagel, also for joining us. But yeah, Sam, I think that's a really good a sandwich, right? It's like all the excitement, but you also have to learn how to command a room in a language that they might not necessarily understand. And definitely an adjustment period is a good way to describe it. So we went over what that full day kind of looks like. So let's take a zoom out and look at our week. So the Israeli work week starts on a Sunday. I know it was a harder thing for me to get used to. I'm not gonna lie, one of the harder things. But the good thing is that you actually you don't start your day with a work week. You start your week with a work day. You start your Sunday with an exploration day. So this could be an educational seminar. It could be a hike somewhere, a day trip. But the point is that you're getting more involved in your community. And you're not just seeing your community, the city that you're living in, from the inside of a classroom. Even if you love teaching and that's going to be your profession forever, it's important to us that you see your city. You get to see Israel from a lot of different angles, and that we give you the opportunities to do that. And so Sundays are the day that you get to have that with your city and some of the surrounding cities in your area as well. And then, of course, it's your day to prep and get ready for the rest of the week. As I mentioned, you'll have a day off. You'll be working about 4.5 of the work days a week. And typically you're in the classroom 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., like I said, about 25 hours. And then you get to really figure out what you do with your day. You have Ulpan lessons that are provided for you, free, included in the cost. We do not require that anybody speaks Hebrew. A lot of our fellows do not speak any Hebrew. Even if you do speak fluent Hebrew, we will ask you to not speak Hebrew with your students, because really the point is English exposure. If someone is, using Hebrew with a few English words every now and then, it's not going to get the job done. It's not why we brought you. That's not why we want you to join us. We want you to come to Israel to bring English exposure. And so you'll be there day in and day out, just encouraging them and writing some lesson plans, which we'll get to in a moment. But what you can see is that your week is really filled with a combination of your duty as a fellow, but then a lot of freedom, a lot of free time. And you can really take this in a few directions. You can use your free time to get to know more people, get involved in other Masa programs, leadership opportunities outside of your program. You can really dive into like a volunteering opportunity. And volunteering doesn't necessarily need to just be, working in a community garden, which you have the opportunity to do. And if that's what your heart is telling you to do, do it. But it can also be career development. I know fellows who have kind of volunteered part-time at a law firm, and they ended up making Aliyah, and now they work at that law firm full-time. But there are also people who worked in, different social justice organizations, or a law firm that didn't get them a job after because they went back to their home country. But the point is that free time can really be utilized in many different ways. And you have those evenings for you, as well as your Shabbats. We actually have 2 Shabbaton throughout the year. You get to choose one of them and you come together with all of our MITF. We have one this weekend. I'm really excited. It's going to be a really nice time for everybody to come together. But the other thing is that you have these connections in other cities. You choose one out of the 12 cities that we offer that you live in. But each weekend you can go to a different city. You can go visit other fellows and you'll have opportunities to get connected. And we really encourage and just to the highest degree encourage you to take advantage of everything that the program offers, because it really can be a lot. Sam, anything else you wanted to add about the weekly schedule, taking advantage of opportunities, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll chime in. So I was here last year, and of course, there was I was here during a lot of the lockdowns for Corona, and I still feel like I had a lot of free time and was able to go do what I wanted throughout my cities in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, throughout the country. MITF provides you with, some structure. You go to school in these times, and the rest of the time is all yours. Of course, the Sunday educational experiences are great. The Shabbatons are great. And yeah, your time is what you make of it. It is fully in your hands.
Yeah, and I think that's what also makes this experience a little bit of that kind of leveled up experience, because you have the systems in place to help get you to Israel, get you connected to a community. But like you said, you really get to make of it what you want, and to, you get out what you put in. That's what it's about. And so part of those support systems are definitely the financial support systems built within MITF. So what does it mean to be a fellow? What do you receive? We've spoken about scheduling, the professional development, the social networking. What else do you get? So when you arrive in Israel, you kind of have, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I kind of think about that whenever I think about the things of how do I remember what I get on MITF? Basic needs will be met. You get to really come in and, again, ask those questions that aren't just, how am I going to make sure I have money to eat? What am I going to do for rent? How am I going to find an apartment? Whatever it is, this stuff is taken care of for you. You arrive in Israel and immediately you have your apartment that is shared with other MITF fellows, roommates, done. Apartment, check. Bills for the year, check. All of these things are covered by Masa. Your rent, your gas, water, electricity, all of those pieces covered by Masa, and this built-in community of MITF fellows, some of whom you might work with, some of whom you might just live with, some of it may be a combination of both. But again, that social networking, that built-in community is crucial anywhere in the world, but especially if you pick up and move across it, definitely helpful to have those, people in place who just understand what you're going through. We have an international cohort, people from US, people from Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India. We have all of these people coming together, and to be able to kind of grow and find your place in the program with these people who are also understanding exactly what you're going through, makes definitely for a softer landing. And if you meet the people in your city, you meet the people in your apartment, you're like, I'm ready to meet more people, you have other opportunities during the year to meet other MITF fellows from all of the cities, as well as Masa fellows from all over the world. And also, if you do get a double room, which is covered by the cost of the program, and if you're interested in a single room, it is an opportunity just for an additional fee. It does vary per city, so just send me an email if you're curious at what the cost is, and we'll get to it together. What else is included besides your living needs being taken care of? So you notice that I did not mention food. However, we do give a monthly living stipend, and this monthly living stipend, it goes into your Israeli bank account that you open up when you arrive. And it's meant to be able to provide you with what you need. And it's definitely there for you to use for groceries, for toiletries, for those kinds of things. Of course, depending on your living lifestyle, you might want to bring some extra spending money. If you want to go out all the time, if you want to travel within Israel, whatever it is, those parts will be up to you. But this monthly living stipend is really intended for you to be able to support yourself. And again, those needs will be covered by these financial support systems put in place by Masa. You get your Hebrew classes covered for the first few months of the program. You have it twice in the evening. Definitely a good way to kickstart your Hebrew. You'll be placed in a class that reflects your level. So don't worry, those pieces are there for you as well. Your health insurance is covered. Your bus pass for the city that you're living in is covered. And you do pay for the flight outright. However, you did read that correctly, and you will get reimbursed for your flight tickets once you complete the full 10 months of MITF. Either the cost of the ticket or up to $1,000. And as someone who has bought many plane tickets from Israel to the West Coast to San Diego, that usually will cover most of it. And so we understand that it is a big financial decision to kind of pick up and go to a new country for 10 months. But we do hope that these will be a way for you to be able to do that and make that decision and make that change and come to Israel. So where will you call home? There are a lot of cities on this page right now. And even for the most experienced Israel travel, you still might say, Netanya, what is that? Ramla, what is that? Rishon, what is that? We have people here for you to get connected to, and they can connect you even more to these cities. We have 3 recruitment coordinators that are from 3 different program providers. And so when you speak with them, just keep in mind there are 3 different lovely recruiters who you might be speaking to. So just make sure that you understand who you are speaking to and from which cities, and they'll help get you connected. Now, if you're looking at this list and you're like, those are just letters on a page, I don't know where to start. That's what I'm here for. You'll get an email following this webinar with a call link to be able to speak to me, schedule a call, and we can kind of narrow it down. I'll learn from you what you're interested in, what do you expect out of your program, and I'll say, you know what, you want to, be a part of a kind of social justice effort community, Kiryat Gat, and then the Tel Aviv track. Absolutely. So that's what I'm here for. I understand the cities, I understand who they serve, and I'm happy to help filter it through with you and be a sounding board. And if you already have an idea, like, no, I definitely want to do a Tel Aviv Plus track, let me know and I'll get you connected to the right person. So you'll also get this, you'll be able to see this list on our website. Don't worry, you'll have people there to help you with that as well. Our alumni network is large and growing. We have over 1,900. We're almost at 2,000 alumni, including Sam, who go on to do really amazing things. And you can see, not just for teachers, not just for educators, definitely a huge, amazing advantage opportunity to take advantage of. In education, this is a good program for you. Not in education, this is the program for you. The question is why? And the title of this webinar was, why is teaching English in Israel like lox on a bagel? We've arrived. When you look at a menu and you have plain bagel with cream cheese or plain bagel with lox, that plain bagel is probably going to cost you like $3.50. How much is that bagel with lox and the works going to cost you? Probably $15. What is the difference besides just the deliciousness, the yummy things that are on the bagel? It's added value. It's the fact that, okay, listen, I could do this at home, but this I wouldn't necessarily have. Or, okay, this is pretty nice, but this is just something extra. And so what does MITF can do for you? MITF is that lox on the bagel. It's that extra something that it could be the same, but there's added value. There's something else that makes you stand out. There's something else that takes it up that extra level. It really just levels you up. So here you can see there are 3 very different kinds of work. Some in education, some working for MITF, a BI consultant. What did they all use to help them get their jobs? It's MITF. This is their lox, right? You hand in a resume, you send in your CV. Hundreds of CVs is what they go through. What makes it stand out is this international experience. You're taking the extra step. You're making the decision to go abroad and to teach English, and to do so in a time in the world which is not so easy to do. So you're showing initiative. You're showing that you have a passion, that you have a drive, and this is what takes it that extra step. Again, we got our bagels, we got our cream cheese. Everybody's putting in bagels. Everybody's putting in cream cheese. These fellows, these alumni, they have their lox. And we have Sesh, we have prompts for you to be able to put in your LinkedIn what MITF is, how your skills are being utilized. We understand that 10 months is a big chunk to take off from whatever it is that you're doing in your career, whether it's a lot of work or you're not sure where to start or you're not sure where to go next. We understand, and we're here to help build you up for after the 10 months as well. It's not just about the 10 months, it's about the after and how we can also help get you there. So before we jump into this more kind of typical questions, and I'm happy to answer, I know that Sam has about 15 more minutes with us, and I do want to take advantage of all of his experience and wisdom. So if anybody who is on our call wants to write in a message, please do so. Write it to everybody. Sam will answer it. So take a second, kind of think of, okay, what is it that I wish I could ask somebody who's done this already, who's decided on a city, who came to Israel, taught for 10 months and finished? What is there to know? Sam, actually, I'll start that question with you while we wait to see what else everyone has to share. What do you wish someone would have told you had you been on this info call 2 years ago or a year and a half ago?
That is an awesome question. What do I wish someone had told me? Honestly, the one thing I wish, someone had told me was actually told to me. I think that, and I'll tell you guys now. So I remember in all these Zoom calls leading up to the program, they taught us 2 Hebrew words. One, but that's exactly what I said. Mm-hmm. One is balagan, which means mess. A lot of things in the U.S., things are, how am I going to say it, more organized. Sometimes in Israel, some things are not super organized, and there could be like last minute changes and so many, what else am I trying to say about this? Not everything is as put together as maybe you would expect in your home. I know that was certainly an adjustment for me. And the way to deal with this balagan mess, uncertainty, is the second word, which is lizrom, and that means to go with the flow. Once I realized that if something is out of my control, to just let it ride and, go with it. Okay. Stress levels got lowered. I was day to day more happy, kind of ready for anything. And examples of this could be, sorry, normally we're in this classroom, but we started class already in this other classroom. And you have to just go upstairs and go to the other classroom. And yeah, I'd say that's one example of it.
Or someone will be like, oh, right, it's English today. And then you get to just run with it and have fun and kind of put your own spin on it. I've definitely heard those stories where teachers will forget that somebody's coming in, and then it ends up being best lesson because there was nobody to say oh, no, I didn't want it. They just get thrown into it,
Right.
And Sam, did you take part in any outside of MITF, Masa leadership weekends? You have friends who did. How does it work with outside of the program, outside of MITF?
Outside of MITF, so my last year was different because of Corona. Because of the gathering restrictions, we couldn't do as many of these gatherings as I'm sure they are this year or they could in previous years. But once lockdowns and gathering restrictions were lifted, we had this awesome leadership summit in the spring, which is where I met so many other. That's where I expanded my network and met so many friends that were not in MITF and that were in Masa programs all around the country. That was really cool. What else did we have? We had, outside of MITF, there were volunteering programs through MITF. I remember at the beginning of the year, we all went and helped organize at Magen David Adom, which is like the Red Cross, but here it's I don't know if it's public. I think it's just they help out. Maybe it's a charity. I'm not 100% sure, but we organized COVID test supplies and made packs, and like, you know, we were out there all day, like doing stuff, and it was great. Outside of MITF, there was a really cool Yom HaZikaron, Remembrance Day ceremony, and that we were lucky enough to attend and see that with, you know, again, with Masa participants from all these other programs.
And leading up to the program, like what was your biggest hurdle to be like, I just need to get past this frustration, this anxiousness, this, I want to go, but I'm not there yet. Like, what was that like leap that you had to make in order to like, okay, feel like this was either the right program for you or, you know?
Well, for me, the biggest issue was Corona. Like, we didn't know, again, like it was Balagan. We had to figure out what is going on with the country, like, are we going to be teaching in person? Like all of these things, which now have been pretty much solved. But for me, it was biggest hurdle. Like, wow. For me, it was, wow, I've never lived so far from all my family and friends and done this thing by myself. But once I got here, it was, of course, it's an adjustment. And of course, if it's a new thing, then you know, I had to figure it out. You have to figure it out. But the thing is, like, so many other people are going to be in the same boat. Like, I came here, I had, like, you know, no real friends. I don't have family here, but so many other people in the program are going through the same thing. And that means so many other people in the program are also going to be reaching out and looking to make friends and do all these things with you. And so going up, I did have a little bit of anxiety. Like, leading up to the program, I had some anxiety about it for sure. But yeah, once you get here, I think you'll realize that so many people are of the same mindset and trying to make the best of their time here, which includes, you know, creating so many new, wonderful, strong connections.
You said before, like you had never really done teaching. You had only been like, not only, I was also a camp counselor. It's a big undertaking. I think the biggest difference between like, you know, working with kids in that informal education setting and this is like the lessons. And I know that it's scary to be saying like, okay, I need to come up with a curriculum. I need to write lesson plans. How did you, what did you do? How did you get to that point? And what was it like?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, of course. You said that you hadn't taught before, and I think a big part of teaching that's scary, even when I do it on, you know, for to teach, is creating lesson plans and understanding curriculum. How did you approach that, and what did you do to get on that first lesson plan and say, all right, I know what to do? Or did you?
Lots of different ways. The first lesson plan, I was like, what is that? Like, I don't really know what's going on. But eventually, kind of get the hang of it, you know. So what I did most of the time was I took out between 1 and 4 students and worked on English individually with them. And sometimes we would just play games, learning the alphabet, play games with certain words, like learning vocabulary. They could have English workbooks. I would work with them on the workbooks. But the really fun stuff was so I had a co-teacher. Some schools will have 2 teaching fellows. And me and my co-fellow, Jenny, we would put together like a PowerPoint presentation. But one, you could teach them about like Western culture and they go nuts for it. Like, oh, here's Thanksgiving. Like, these are costumes I've worn. Like, I'm sorry, Halloween. Here are costumes I've worn. Here's Thanksgiving. Like, this is what we do on Thanksgiving. Here's the story. Like, this is, you know, here's like all about me. Like, these are my favorite movies. I love to travel. And
sharing dance moves
of yourself as a kid.
Is it sharing some dance moves?
Exactly. I actually forgot all about that. Yeah, like you dance with like like they just love having fun. They love learning about you. They love learning about Western culture. And I think those are are there 2? I think there's 2 like clips of me dancing that I can think of. If you have fun with them in English, they're going to learn and they're going to, you know, have the best time.
And you said sometimes there was that, whether it was a transition period or kids are just having a hard day. How did you deal with did you deal with discipline? How did you deal with students who were acting up? Because I think it's one thing to like follow everything that you're saying. And I'm like picturing in my mind, I see the video of you dancing with the kids, but I also know that there's things that aren't being filmed, you know, those harder days. How did you meet your students where they were at? How did you find solutions? Like, how do you do that when they don't speak your language?
Totally. That's a really good question. Sometimes it's hard, and you have to. Like a lot. I mean, you know, they're kids. They don't always have good days, and sometimes you do have to meet them where they are, and you know, like be more patient. You're like, hey, like, let's just get through like this one activity. Like we got this. Then it's great if you have another student in there, like helping cheer them on, helping cheer them up. Like you do have to sometimes. You have to like earn their respect. The kids they love pushing boundaries, and if
your kids, whether they're in Israel or Houston, right?
Yeah, seriously. But especially like in Israel, they love pushing boundaries, and if they go too far, you just have to like put your foot down and say, hey, okay, like enough. If you want to learn English with me, you can't act like this. Go back to the room. I will find someone else. And once they realize that you mean business, they'll start respecting you more and, you know, act better, basically.
No, it's a good point. It doesn't sound like, you know, you're there as that disciplinary figure. It seems very much like I'm here to take you out to have fun. If you can't handle it, like you can go back in your classroom.
Exactly. I always thought of myself as the fun uncle at school.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, like, you know, you've got to make sure you can be fun, but still have to have the kids respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last question is, what was your favorite space in Israel? And you also, what city were you in?
My favorite space was the question.
Let's do first, what city were you living in? And then you can say what your favorite place is in Israel. City, space.
Wow, okay.
Set, whatever.
So I lived in Bat Yam, which is a town right on the beach. Like, during all the lockdowns, I would walk into Tel Aviv. That's how close it is. I would take these 2-hour walks with my audiobooks, like along the Mediterranean, and it was just beautiful.
Awesome.
And my favorite spot, right at the end of my street, at the end of my street of my Masa apartment, there was like a hill overlooking the beach, and it faces west. So, you know, there's sunsets over the sea every day. And just sitting there with my roommates, like, you know, like winding down for the day resetting, winding down, sitting there on Shabbat when it's quiet, like during the day. That's got to be my favorite spot. I have very, very fond memories of this one specific hill, like just down the street from my apartment, overlooking the beach, overlooking the sea, the sunset. And that's something that makes that city special to me.
I agree. I think Israel has some of the best sunsets, and like just even walking around this past Shabbat in Jerusalem, like everything is just phenomenal. And I know that sunset over the water is something else.
The best.
I understand. And the last question before we say Lehitra to you is, why did you choose MITF? What brought you to that decision?
That's also a great question. I mentioned it briefly, but I'll start at, I guess, the end of college. I went straight from university. I studied like business at UT Austin, which is like a good business school. I'm like, all right, like going straight in, like corporate America, and like you're gonna like have a great job and just, you know, start running. So I tried running and like I fell on my face. I just had a bad first experience. Tried again, like got up, dusted myself off, tried again, and didn't fall on my face that time. But, you know, still like I was working at a big tech company and like in Austin, which was so close to home. And I was like, oh, like I wanted something more. Like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that I thought could make a difference, and I wanted to do it somewhere far away from home. Like I wanted to get out of Texas. So literally during like a Zoom meeting, December of 2019, right, like December of 2019, I was so miserable at this office, not Masa, this is way before. I was like, okay. And I start Googling like teaching abroad opportunities. I look in like, oh, like, you know, it'd be fun. It's like South Korea or Spain or Japan or Italy. And then I come across like, I'm like, oh, like why, you know, don't I look into living in Israel? Like I haven't been since my trip in high school, like 6 years ago. And, you know, here's this program, like, wow, if I apply to go to Japan, I have to like do everything myself. Interview with all of these schools individually and find my own place to live. And then I look at MITF, I'm like, not only would I be able to spend time like in Jewish homeland where I actually have connections and there are roots, but like they do so much of the heavy lifting. Like they put you in a school, they give you they start you with a community, like they give you an apartment. Like really, it's all of those things trying to do by myself in a different country where I didn't speak the language, which I'm kind of doing now, but doing it a year and a half ago would have been really hard right in the thick of the pandemic. And like MITF and Masa really, really took care of things. So that's the two biggest reasons I chose MITF specifically were, you know, reconnecting with Judaism, Jewish homeland, and just like spending time in Israel. And two, they like Masa does a lot of the heavy lifting and makes moving to a new country like as seamless a process as possible. And I think I got everything I wanted out of it. I felt like my work was super meaningful. It was a brand new experience, like the locks on the bagel for sure. That if you've read The Defining Decade, there's a phrase I really like from that book called identity capital. It's like something that's interesting, like something that sets you apart. And I feel like this MITF is absolutely something that sets me apart. So the identity capital, the locks on the bagel, it made me feel like I was making a difference. And, you know, it's an adventure. It's moving to a new country. How cool is that? Like I got everything I wanted out of it. And, you know, like I recommend MITF like with my entire heart.
I know you do, Sam. And it's always amazing to hear your story. I always get a little bit of chills. And if anybody wants to talk with Sam outside of off of the Zoom call and get some real details, he's happy to talk more. And, you know, we understand that, again, this is a big commitment, 10 months. And so you can speak with Sam, you can speak with other alumni, current fellows. We're always happy to connect you. Sam, I also want to be respectful of your time, so we can say goodbye for now, and I'll wrap up with everybody still on this call. So thank you again. It was really lovely to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Again, feel free to reach out with any questions. I'm available. I'm happy to talk about any questions, concerns, whatever you might have. Like I just went through the program, so you know I'm happy to help.
Sam, do you want to type in your email into the chat so they know how to get in contact with you?
Yeah, feel free to email me. Right, that's it. That is my email.
And when you all come to Israel, we'll take you out for coffee. We'll take you out for falafel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yofi. So thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
Wrap up our session, just give you some next steps. So next steps, after hearing, I love just hearing Sam talk about his story. He's really, really an incredible person who came on MITF and who now works for Masa. I'm really happy that you had the opportunity to hear from him. So next steps, you have a few steps with your application. Feel free to screenshot this, but you'll also get this kind of in a way more detailed list once you start the application. So there's the first step would be to speak with a city recruiter. Like I mentioned, there are 3 different city recruiters that each work with a different clump of cities. So just make sure that you understand who you're speaking to, and you can always ask them, remind me which cities that you speak for again, and they'll help you get connected to the right city or the right recruiter that has the information for you. You have a pre-qualification form, which most of you probably have filled in. If not, you can get it, just by going to the Masa website. You can just Google MITF Masa. It'll be one of the first things that comes up. Fill in the pre-qualification form to check that you're eligible, and then you should get a link to a written application. If not, always feel free to send me an email. So you start with that written application. You need to have a video interview, and this is all done through one city recruiter. That one city recruiter who handles the cities in the city that you want will conduct your interview. We'll work with you on your application. You'll need to submit some mental health forms, physical health forms, background checks in the public schools, and then everything is submitted for a review committee to go over. You receive an answer from your recruiter, and if you are accepted onto the program, then that is when you're able to secure your spot. So you're only able to secure a spot at the end of everything. So it's really in your best interest to move forward, be diligent about what you need to submit and when, because cities are already starting to fill up. And definitely in these first 3 months, we see a big rush of applications and interviews and deposits. And so we're on a rolling registration. And so really as cities fill up, they're closed. So it's something for you to keep in mind and to make sure that everything is happening in that timely manner so that you can have your first city choice. And if not, then you can always have your second city of choice. But I really want you to have that first. So please let me know how I can help. You don't know where to begin, you don't know how to start, send me an email. I'll walk you through it. You don't have to be alone in this. The whole year, everything we've just spoken about comes down to $1,000. It's $1,000 from you. Masa puts in a grant, and the Ministry of Education really puts in a huge subsidy. It's just a reflection also of how valued that your work is within the ministry. As we said, they are able to subsidize the program really heavily, but they also are one of the main reasons with Masa Ministry of Education, how we were able to keep fellows in with the breakout in 2020 of Corona. As things were fluctuating, we kept fellows, we brought new fellows in, we finished that year, we brought new fellows in. And that's really that reflection of just the importance of your work and the fact that the Ministry of Education, they need you here, and we want to be able to bring you. So the whole program is $1,000. If you've participated on a Masa program before or have been in the country 4 months or longer, that price will vary. Send me an email if you have any questions. You want to know, have you done a Masa program? Send me an email and I'm happy to check that out for you. So you can see all of these steps in the application itself. But I think, as you saw today, listening to the stories, speaking with fellows, hearing from alumni, that's really what's going to get you the most bang for your buck in terms of understanding what the program is and how to choose a city and which city to choose. I really recommend you look through our Instagram, give us a follow, and that way you can see different fellow highlights, different city highlights, and start to plant the seed and get to figure out which of those cities really speak to you the most. And also feel free to reach out to me, as I mentioned before, and I'm happy to connect you to fellows in the cities that you want to live in. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate everybody joining on this call. I'm happy to